Sign up with MyBookie. Use Gators Breakdown promo code Gators to get your first ever deposit matched dollar for dollar. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you the day after Florida defeats FAU 35-14. We'll get into it here on Gators Breakdown like we do every Sunday after a game. If you guys are new to Gators Breakdown, this is how we do it. Pretty much just a basic review at the game. We got plenty of time throughout the week to kind of go through more of the storylines of the week. But this is more of a look at the game itself, what Florida did, what Florida didn't do, what they could have done better, what they did really well, and all that. So, of course, storylines kind of will get intermingled here, but the big storylines, of course, I know we'll all talk about the quarterback situation, get into it a little bit here, but just know we have a little bit more time for all that talk throughout the week. So this is more of a look at the game itself between Florida and Florida Atlantic that was played on Saturday night. Man, there we go. It was a fun time in Gainesville. It felt really good to see what it ended up being. Gainesville was popping. It was hopping. It was a lot of fun. The tailgate was huge. A lot of people having fun. The stadium ended up filling up pretty nicely as well. After I know some people who had tickets for sale and they were worried about getting rid of them, and they eventually sold throughout the week. But the stadium, especially the students showed up. The alumni side, of course, showed up. It was nice to have football the way we know football. The band's on the field, the team's running out of the tunnel through the band, the stadium's full. It was a lot of fun. Finally, great to be back in that experience, of course, when you look at that. The game, of course, didn't go as planned as we kind of thought it would. With Florida Atlantic, I thought it would be more of a blowout there. I had a predicted score of 41-13 or something like that. And look, there was the opportunity there to make the score worse. The opportunity there for Florida to get off to an even larger jump. They did, jumped out 14-0. Very good chance the game could have been 28-0 after the first four offensive drives of the game. If not for the Emory interception in the end zone, that ball gets picked off there. Then the miscommunication on the very next drive on 4th and goal, and the quarterback sneak yards away from the goal line. And a lot of playing a lot of players on defense and inconsistency on the defensive side of the ball. I'd say played good. Not as dominant in places where I thought they'd be. And a lot of it goes to inconsistency there. The second half, I understand the backups were in late. Still disappointing with how they ended the game, especially with the penalty. So I'll get into that more as well. Conservative approach, I think, but that should not have mattered. And like I said, there was still the chance of getting up 28-0, even with the conservative approach there. But when you kind of go conservative there and then you don't hit the easy plays you should be hitting, then you get kind of the outcome that we were getting with Florida FAU there. So we'll look at a few factors that held Florida back. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't all bad. There were some good things that happened as well, but we have to start at the quarterback position. We'll start on offense. And, dating back to the reports of Emory Jones and dating back to the spring and dating back to the fall and struggling with the accuracy, struggling with the touch, struggling with reads, locking on the wide receivers. Even with what was supposed to be some of the easier throws were off target, whether they were completed or not. The throws to Whittemore over the middle were behind or low. The swings and screens were low, not allowing wide receivers to get a good start on a catch and run. Passing game just seemed very, very limited with Emory out there. Most throws were over the middle, not much to the outside or down the field. A lot of screens, a lot of short routes. And a big part of this is why are these issues here in year four? Maybe he had a bad night on his first start. That could certainly be the case. But I keep going back, and hopefully that's the extent of it. It is possible he just had a bad night on his first night, but it's the continuation from what we heard from practice reports and dating back to the spring of the issues that affected Emory Jones, and those are exactly the same issues we saw in the game. Got off to a nice start. Had Florida rolling up 14-0. Gators driving down the field. He has to come in on the third drive of the game when Anthony Richardson takes over and throws the interception. But so you could kind of maybe say some momentum was kind of taken away from Emory coming out. I mean, they knew that was going to be the game plan coming in. It still doesn't mean it could not have affected him, but still some even with the good first couple of drives, still some misreads, and even he admitted it as well. We'll get into some of what he had to say there. But the offense, 14 points right off the board. Running game was working well with Emory as well. Was playing well enough to get the Gators up 14-0. Then just right after that, just it did the production fell down just a bit there. So, like I said, maybe he just had a first bad night on his first start. Hopefully, that's the extent of it. But the continuation from the notes and the performance we heard back in the spring, that's what really gets me, because those are the exact issues we saw in Emory Jones' first start here at quarterback. Inaccuracy, lack of touch, wrong reads. Exactly what we heard coming in, and that's exactly what we saw. I mean, those two interceptions pretty bad. The first one in the end zone, bad decision, bad throw. The second one, late on the throw, allowed the DB to recover, undercut the wide receiver. Had it been thrown earlier, definitely completion. If it had been thrown more over the shoulder, toward the sideline, probably a completion as well. Mainly just waited too long, and the weight there doomed that throw. I think that bled over to a lot of the zone read decisions as well. I thought he made some pretty good decisions early on as well, when to keep the ball, when to hand the ball. A few I think he should have kept, just a little behind on the speed of the decision there. Just, I don't know. I don't want to say the moment overwhelmed him in a way that could, if you still believe Emory Jones can get the job done, then I think you can look at it. Maybe the moment just did overwhelm him, and the quarterback that we expected to get is what we'll get from here on out. And maybe it was just the first start. Now, that can rub some people the wrong way, and I completely understand. You have Alabama out there with a guy who was a true freshman last year, just sprinkled in, go that area, makes his first start versus Miami, and looks like he just fits right in and keep that ball rolling. A lot of young guys out there, young quarterbacks out there who haven't been in the program 3-4 years, being groomed for a spot and looking better than that. So, I get both sides of it. I'm hoping it was just a bad night, just an off night there. But, it's the worry is what we heard coming in, and this is exactly what we got when looking at the play of Emory Jones. So he was asked after the game on if he felt good on how the game started for him in the first quarter. And, quote, he says, "Honestly, not really. I still feel like I made a lot of mistakes early in the game that you probably couldn't see. For myself, just knowing that I missed too many throws that I never do. It's just getting more comfortable being out there, actually being a starter. I just have to lock in and get better every week." So maybe he felt the pressure. Maybe he felt the pressure of being the University of Florida quarterback in his first game. Even he admits, missed too many throws that I never do there. So hopefully that's the case. Like I said, hopefully what we saw versus FAU is not the Emory Jones that many of us thought we were going to see out there. And he was also asked about his 2 interceptions and being physical or mental mistakes, because it's a mixture of both. It's a mixture of just seeing the defense, making decisions right there, and second guessing yourself or not really being sure what's going to happen in that play. I was kind of losing my rhythm a little bit, but it happens to everybody. I just have to get more comfortable with being in the game, and in every play, just keep getting better. So I do think it kind of snowballed a bit. I think after that first pick, I think mental mentally right there. I just think it maybe snowballed just a bit. And he's right. I mean, he's got to be able to read the defensive better and make sure of what the defense is doing and the decisions you have to make with what the defense is showing you. Yeah, not sure of what the defense is going to do, but that's why you bring your experience to the table as well in those situations. So we'll see where it goes from here. I know we got to go to the next point and the excitement that Anthony Richardson brought in. That wasn't perfect there by any means either. Did it flow better? Absolutely. Was there a lot more excitement? Absolutely at that point. But I mean, the excitement we saw from Richardson was pretty much how we were feeling those first couple of drives too, with Emory out there. But AR comes in, offense looks smoother. And look, guys, I shared that on the podcast too. We were hearing that Emory was doing okay in these fall scrimmages, but the offense looked smoother. The offense just looked better with AR. And we didn't know the exact situations these quarterbacks were put in, but it looks like that played out in the first game. And it just looked smoother as the night progressed there with Anthony Richardson coming in. Like I said, came in that third drive of the game, moved the offense down the field till his helmet come off. He has to come off the field. And then you could tell later that when AR came in, now he's got a hit on a few of these, but downfield passing opened up. And like I said, it was very limited for Emory. I don't think it was many different play calls. I just don't think he was taking the chances AR was taking. They said that the offense doesn't change with these two guys. So Anthony comes in and the ball's being pressed down the field a bit more. Now you do wonder, he led those wide receivers too much. Makes you wonder if those are completed with some of the better receivers out there instead of some of the backups Anthony Richardson was playing with. But you would like to see him make those deep throws, of course. But the big quarterback runs, a 73-yard touchdown run, showed that speed, showed a way to get to the edge. Great block by Emory Gamble to spring that run for him. Some of his own read decisions he made to get some big runs as well. You could just see, the stiff arm, the jump, the hurdle over a player. There was definitely a certain sense of excitement when Anthony Richardson went out there and played. And look, kudos to both of these guys too after the game. And you see it on social media, on Twitter. They're congratulating each other. They're joking around with each other there, and I think that's good for Emory as well. To show there's support still, and there's a lot of belief that he can still be the quarterback that many want him to be out there. So, of course, we know this is a situation worth monitoring. We'll have plenty of time to get into it this week here on Gators Breakdown. Dan Mullen said twice after the game, interviewed by SEC Network, right on the field right after the game, saying Emory's the starter. We asked him in the media session after the game as well. He reiterated Emory is the starter. So right now, of course, I expect him to say that after a game. Will things change in the media session this week or next Saturday when Florida plays USF? I don't expect it to. I do think Emory gets the job, but I do think the leash could be a little shorter. And look, Richardson was getting in on the third drive of this game anyway, so he's going to be part of the offense. Now, what this may signify, and I'll move on after this, so we'll talk more about this week. It could signify that we just see more Richardson while Emory is also the starter as well. That could be the first step if no change is made for the starting position there. So there's the quarterback talk. There's kind of what happened there. It's I know we'll have plenty to discuss there. We will look at this game in particular, though. Plenty of time to talk about quarterback talk all week long, especially when we get more talking with Mullen and all that course throughout the week. So you guys know me. Got a good bit of what I wanted to see in that run game. Malik Davis with the explosive runs I wanted to see so much. Common theme here that's going to be for me. I want to see the improvement in the run game, and that's where it starts for me. I want to see the improvement in the explosive plays for this Gator offense, especially in the overmatched opponents. Now we know the focus of the offense is changing. We know the focus of the offense is going to be the run game. So there we go. We get it in an overmatched situation. You're changing, but this is still a game that you have to show that ability. If you're going to change the offense, and we know you're going to have to rely on the run game, especially now. If this was an indication, if this game was an indication, we know how important that run game is going to be now. Then you definitely needed to showcase that you could start busting some big runs. Malik Davis, he at the forefront of that. Now, don't get me wrong, he was the run game last year. We talked ad nauseum about that, but he was still quote unquote the most explosive runner last year. Not that there were many, but he had 3 runs, while I think Pearson Wright only had 1 run over 20 yards. So with this, much credit, you got to give it to the offensive line as well, particularly the right side. We can go look at the right side. I posted some images on on Twitter this morning. One of the Kamori Gamble block, of course, on AR's long 73-yard touchdown run. But Damian Pierce, his second touchdown run, the right side of the offensive line helps bring that after Pierce makes the blitzing linebacker miss there. So good, I thought really good look at the explosive potential of this running game here. Rushing game stats, 46 attempts between the running backs and quarterbacks for 400 yards, a record gain in a season opener, 8.7 yards per rush for this Gator offense. Here we go. Anthony Richardson, his 73-yard scamper is the longest of the night, but at the running back position with explosives of 31, 17, and 21 from Malik Davis. As a team, Florida had 13 rushes that were 10 or more yards for 292 yards. As a team, go back to that one more time. Florida had 13 rushes that were 10 or more yards for 292 yards. That's the chunk yardage I'm talking about with this run game. Kudos to the offensive line, like I said, for also not giving up a sack in 35 attempts. Quarterbacks did some nice. Some of the rushing yards came from the quarterbacks escaping the pressure as well on call pass plays. The 400 rushing yards was also the most under Mullen at Florida, and most since Kentucky in 2011. So there we go. Gene Delance, he's been targeted there, rightfully so, with some of the criticism from his play. We said, let's wait and see what happens in this more run approach. Now, it's only one game, only at FAU. I'm not saying a question was answered, but if there was a time we actually needed to see it, like if it would have been bad, then okay, we can go ahead and probably say it would have continued to what we have seen before. But now we got at least one data point for this year, and they look good. The offensive line passed the test. They're changing the offense. They're changing the scheme. The scheme is going to change just a bit. And there we go. We get the explosive runs led by the offensive line a good bit too. So, all right, when you guys definitely donate, I'll get the question in here. What do you think happened in that 4th and goal? Turnover on downs, strange play call, or mistake by Emory? That's from Funky Fudge 11 there. So Mullen told us after the game. I don't think Mullen knew this at the time. And you could tell when Emory's coming off the sideline, he's like, expletive, but what was that? And it was a miscommunication. Dan said, like, Emory got the wrong play in off of the sideline. So it sounds like it could even been a staff issue of getting the wrong play in. I think Mullen kind of hinted at maybe Emory probably should have realized that was not the play they needed to be in, and maybe call a timeout and discuss it. But it doesn't seem like that was a call by Emory to run that play. So that's how I took it. I think that's basically how Mullen took that. How Mullen was explaining that. But that was the miscommunication coming from the sideline was basically the mixed signals. There we go. That was the word that was used. So Mullen's saying that Emory should have been able to basically kind of realize that. Lets me know he trusts him there to make that, but maybe Emory should have seen the issue, called the timeout. And that was after the interception. And Florida's going could have been their 4th touchdown in the game, but could have made it 21-0 in that regard. But where was Emory's head during that time? That was after the interception, of course. And as Emory said, you got to kind of just move on to the next play, and where he was at in that game at that time, just move on, keep going. But that play in particular, Mullen says maybe a timeout should have been called, and can discuss it going from there. And you go under center, and it was back at the 4-yard line, I believe. So that was something else I noticed. So, kind of going to that point, Florida was under center a good bit when they were in those goal line situations. Something that's not totally surprised, but you expect to see more of Mullen quarterbacks in the shotgun But I did notice the quarterback's under center for some of these power plays out there for the Gators in goal line situations. All right. Man, some good stuff here, but more rushing numbers and what they did in the running game coming up. But before we get there, winning season returns at mybookie.ag, and it's time to get in on the action. First-time players can get started by doubling your first deposit, giving you the firepower to add excitement to the games you love. College football odds boost, NFL lock of the season, and over $500,000 in contest prizes live on site to make this winning season your best ever with MyBookie. With a historic 18-week NFL schedule offering more action than ever before, you need a sportsbook casino that's reliable, and you won't find a better place to play this season than MyBookie. You know you're going to bet this season, so the smart thing to do is sign up with MyBookie. Use our promo code Gators to get your first ever deposit matched dollar for dollar. That's extra money credited to your account instantly for just using promo code Gators and making your first deposit. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie. All right, guys, let's go to more of the overall rushing stats for this Gator team. 400 yards for the game. We knew it was going to be the focus. They expounded on that for 400 yards this game. Quarterback Anthony Richardson, 160 yards on 7 carries. And running back Malik Davis, 104 yards on 14 carries. Both rushed for over 100 yards in the win. Marks the second time in program history the Gators have had 2 100-yard rushers, with one of the two being a quarterback. The only prior instance was the 2008 National Championship game versus Oklahoma, where Percy Harvin saw 122 yards, Tim Tebow 109. So there you go. 2 players, one being the quarterback, going over 100 yards. Last time that happened, National Championship game versus Oklahoma. The Gators had multiple 100-yard rushers for the first time since the 18 South Carolina game, when Jordan Scarlett with 159 and LaMichael Pirine with 107 yards. Both ran for over 100 yards. Richardson became the first Florida quarterback to rush for 100 yards since Jeff Driscoll ran for 177 yards in 2012 at Vanderbilt. And Florida's 8.7 yards per carry versus FAU, team highest mark in a single game since averaging 9.3 yards per carry against Vanderbilt in 2012 as well. So there you go. Rushing stats, yards per carry, total yards, running back, quarterback combo, 2 players running for over 100 yards. There you go. That's how you dissect this Gator run game. And hopefully we see more of it. Hopefully it's something that, if these quarterbacks are going to struggle passing the ball, something they can fall back on, rely on to still carry the offense while the progression in the passing game comes along. Don't get me wrong, week 3, you need all of it to be there. But as the season progresses, the run game is going to have to be there, probably game in and game out. All right, wide receiver numbers, probably not what we expected. Much of it due to a lot of the off-target throws, but Whittemore certainly could have had more catches. The tight ends weren't targeted much at all. They blocked well in the run game, but didn't get too much involved in the passing game. And wide receiver stats, only 20 passes were caught on 35 attempts as Rick Wells and Damian Pierce led the way with 5 catches each. Shorter with 4, but only 11 yards to go with that. So not making anything happen after the catch. Like I said, a lot of those were some of the low throws, off-target throws to where he really couldn't make anything happen. He had to worry more about catching the ball and then maybe trying to make a play after the catch. There, Copeland, right, with 1 catch apiece as well. Just didn't go that deep here, especially with the tight ends not catching balls either. So wide receivers, with that struggling in the passing game, not the numbers, at least maybe some of the numbers I'm not sure we all expected 40 receptions in this game, but only 20. And then who caught those? Maybe surprising people as well. You did have targets there. Like I said, Whittemore over the middle. Some of those throws were behind. Some of those throws were low. He probably at least could have had 2 more catches there for Whittemore over the middle there. So the blocking, the rushing, a lot of those explosives don't happen without the wide receivers blocking as well. So another aspect to get on the field for Dan Mullen and these wide receivers. They helped open and spring up some of those long, big runs as well. But, good to see Weston get involved and get some catches. Good for Wick Wells, too, a guy who's stuck around, the super senior for the team, getting his first career touchdown. He made himself, really a target out there for these quarterbacks leading the way with 5 catches. So good for him leading the team here after the time that he's had for this in this program and getting his first career touchdown. Defense. Here we go. Other side of the ball. Probably besides quarterback, the second most popular storyline we were probably looking at going into this game and what they were going to do as a whole. Inconsistent to me, maybe can be attributed to rotating a good bit of players in there. But let's start with the basic aspect of what we all wanted to see, and that was just lining up right, all the communication that goes in there. We didn't see the huge gaps there in communication. And definitely we needed to see that after last season. And, something it's just something we needed to see. We didn't see the huge gap where somebody was left wide open on a miscommunication in the secondary. The guys were lined up, ready to go. You didn't see hands in the air. You didn't see a whole lot of hollering across the field of what am I supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? At least we got that. We got the number one point for me anyway, going and looking at this Gator defense. They got one of the basics out of the way. I thought tackling was okay for the game as well. Some angles early were probably wrong and led to some more missed tackles than probably should have been. But I thought once the guys were in position to make the tackles, they actually made them as well. So overall, I thought the tackling was okay as well. The angles played a part in some of the missed tackles that Florida was having. So, but something else that's just a staple of a Todd Grantham defense, and I can't imagine where this defense would be in Todd Grantham's career, and maybe even yesterday too, without the sacks for the Gators. 6 sacks on the night, 8 quarterback hurries. The early strip sack by Zachary Carter was nice to see after last season, as well as the sacks happened last season, but this didn't lead to many turnovers. First big sack of the game, and boom, strip sack. Gators recover and in business. But, Zachary Carter, after the game, talking to the media, said 2 things here I really like. First, he said he's been working on stripping the ball, and we saw that pay dividend right away. Game 1, hey, this is something I'm working on. I have an opportunity. I hit the quarterback, ball goes. Jervin Dexter picks it up, Gators ball. But you love hearing stuff like that. Things they're working on, things that actually show up. But he also stated, and he read the offensive tackle's stance on that play and knew it was going to be a pass. So he was able to fly off the snap. And I love hearing that from Carter, not only for him, but go back to the preseason when players like Dexter were mentioning those types of details are something they want to learn, something they need to improve on in aspects of their game. So, and he said he was looking at Zachary Carter as a player that he looked to in helping with this aspect of his game. So hopefully Dexter can take that same learning moment, apply it to his career growth. Because it's there's the little things. The coaching staff mentioned it as well. It's the little things when you play positions that will make you better, that will make you take that next step. The little thing like, okay, I can see how this offensive tackle's standing. It's going to be a pass play. I'm going to go hit the quarterback. It was those things, keys that you look for. And they were mentioning that with Dexter as well, of like how to read offensive linemen and how to read the running back's feet and stuff dating back to the preseason. Well, there you go. Now you can learn from somebody like Zachary Carter, who has proven right now in game 1 of this season, all right, there are some keys that I've picked up on that helped me in my game. So also shout out to Dexter for being turnover magnet and recovering 2 fumbles in the game. Zach Carter set a career high with 3 sacks last time that happened. Jonathan Grenard in 2019 versus Florida State. And man, did you see the speed Chris Bogle flashed on his sack in the backfield in a hurry, hopefully giving the Gators another playmaker at that buck rush in position. And he just flew off the ball as well, getting back there, hitting the quarterback. 25 defenders had a tackle in this game. So that was led by last year's tackling leader, Ventrell Miller, with 7 tackles. Good to see young safety Mordecai McDaniel get 6 stops in the game as well. But Florida played a whole lot of guys last night. They rotated them in and out. That probably led to some of the inconsistency. I thought they were playing a little slow to begin with at the beginning of the game. I think they have the speed and talent, but maybe a little tentative to start the game yesterday. Now, let's get into I talked about we saw the communication We saw that part of the defense improve, not the huge gaps of leaving wide receivers wide open down the field for easy scores. But for whatever reason, we get this again. We still see the cushion coverage on third down attempts and third down attempts by the Florida Atlantic offense, and just not sure why that's still an issue for this Gator defense of the cushion coverage, playing off of the receivers, players backing off right before the snap, giving cushion yards of cushion, only for their guy or another underneath route by a running back to easily cross the first down marker. I don't remember that being an issue so much at 18 and 19. What changed in 2020 to where they want these DBs to play so far off? And maybe we didn't realize it so much, and they actually did. And those guys come up and made the tackles before the offensive player crossed the first down marker. I just don't. I don't remember it in this fashion, this way. So with that, FAU kept Florida's offense on the sideline, and Florida, their scoring drives were pretty long too early in the game. In the first half the offense for the Gators didn't have many real drives in the first half, only 4. Defense only forced 1 3-and-out all night versus FAU. And in the first half for Florida Atlantic, their first 4 drives, 10 plays for 37 yards, 6 plays for 26 yards, 10 plays for 33 yards, 11 for 57. They had 15 minutes and 32 seconds time of possession in the first half on offense for an offense that wasn't that great last year. And they could not get their offense back on the field. If Florida just let FAU out there run play after play, they didn't get a whole lot of yards, 10 plays for 37 yards, 6 for 26, 10 for 33, 11 for 57, but 10 plays, 6 plays, 10 plays, 11 plays, they were converting third downs there against this Gator defense. So it was mostly in the first half. And look, they brought in the Kosi Perry to fix that offense to be better than it was last year. But I still think too much time on the field for that FAU offense. I understand it's about points. They were keeping them out of the end zone for this Gator defense. So I'll give them kudos there. You did your main job of eventually getting them off the field and not letting them score any points there. You had a little bit of help, some overthrows, some turnovers, of course, as well. But it's about the points. Defense held their own there, but it's still a little more consistency in the defense there. 4 of 7 on third down in the first half for the Owls. They ended the game 5 of 12, so it did get better. But 4 of 7 on third down in the first half. Florida, like I said, they had their chances anyway on offense to go up 28-0, but even could have had the ball even more in the first half if the defense could have did their job on third down. Overall, the Owls ran 70 plays in the game, 23 first downs. Too much there. Should have never been able to run 70 plays in this Gator defense. 23 first downs. It kind of goes to another point. They just were on the field. They were on the field a lot, kept the Gator offense on the sideline there. So another thing about this cushion and that part of the defense, Mullen said after the game, they knew Perry was going to get rid of the ball quick. Okay. So why isn't the coverage tighter? This is something that, bugged this defense last year. Why wasn't the coverage tighter with the way Florida was successfully rushing the passer pretty much all night? Perry had to get rid of the ball. So if he has to get rid of the ball, tighten the coverage up, let the defender make a tackle or play on the ball. Let him be around the ball with that pressure that's coming from the front. Also just a better chance for turnovers. But playing off, knowing the quarterback's under duress, that makes little sense to me. So I think if you could get that pressure, whether it's 4 or 5 players bringing it, tighten that coverage a little bit. Tighten that coverage up a little bit. You made it too easy there for him just to get rid of the ball with the coverage being off. Even if he didn't have a whole lot of time, he knew where he wanted to go with the ball. They could make something happen after the catch because the DBs were nowhere near him when they make the catch. He had to get rid of the ball early, put some tighter coverage on these guys, and there you go. You probably get the offense off the field. Let's see here. FAU averaged 13.7 yards per pass compared to Florida's 7.7. That's a whole 6 yards more for FAU in per pass. They also averaged 5 yards per carry. There, if you take out the quarterback sacks, Mullen mentioned the inconsistency there, saying it felt like a run for FAU either went for no yards or for 10 yards. And that's exactly what that stat says there for the FAU team. So I did want to see more consistency, more domination from the defensive line in rush defense. A lot of moving pieces there that I think they'll eventually settle into. I think that had a little bit to do with the consistency there for this Gator defensive front, is not kind of forcing their will. I thought it would be a little better. I'm not going to lie, but maybe, hopefully, rotation played a part. And then they settle as the season progresses. They settle on the guys they want out there the most. But they're deep. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you want a lot of those guys out there. You Valentino, Newkirk, Dexter all showed flashes there. Hopefully you get some of those guys healthy behind those guys as well. But even Truesdale out there, one of his early plays out there made his presence felt with a tackle. So Florida is deep there. And they can get even deeper with getting some of the younger guys back. But how much do they need to settle on, the first 2-3 guys there and keep those guys in there to try and make some plays? A lot of moving pieces there. I understand. And we Florida needed this depth, mostly because of injuries. Of course, if something happens, you have somebody else to turn to. And look, this staff is very big on turnover. This staff is very big on rotating and getting different guys in there. We've seen that running back, of course, good, but Bowen and Lingard were getting early carries. But the same thing here at defensive tackle. They got a lot of options there, and you probably could go drive for drive and have different defensive tackles out there. Those guys will be fresh in the fourth quarter, but doesn't mess with their mindset and consistency. I think was something the staff will kind of have to monitor throughout there. So even though third down got better in the second half for this Florida defense, rotating more players, not only up front, but all along with some of the starters. Some of the starters still out there too. There was definitely a drop in production. We saw Travis Johnson get beat for a deep ball. But that's going to happen. I'm not expecting you to go shut those guys out. And that really wasn't my issue with some of the younger players out there. I was more disappointed in the penalties, and that came along with it. You put some secondary guys in there, or some secondary depth pieces there, guys that are second string and third string. Of course, if the other team's playing their starters like FAU a lot was, I understand plays are going to happen, but a lot of those plays were extended because of a lot of those drives were extended because of the penalties and these young players and the penalties that kept popping up there for this Gator defense. More disappointed there. Plays will happen, but without those penalties, you may get the stop anyway. Penalty yards added up. You had the personal foul, Jadarius Perkins and Mordecai McDaniel, and then a roughing the passer on a 3rd and 16 from Antoine Powell. Penalties helped contribute to scoring drives for FAU. So it wasn't just the defense. Florida committed 9 penalties on the night. Way too many penalties. But it was the major ones late that were kind of a lack of concentration for some of the younger players, and leading to the touchdowns for FAU, getting rid of the shutout Florida had going into the fourth quarter for this Gator defense. So up and down performance. I like what I saw up front. Mostly consistency. Just want to see a little bit more of that. The pass rush was there. Prairie was getting abused a bit all night. And like I said, with that pressure, just bring these DBs up. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk to them about that this week as well. If they'll go into detail about why they do that so much on the defensive side of the ball. But good things on defense. Florida's 10 points allowed is the team's second fewest total in a game dating back to November of 2019. The Gators allowed fewer points just once last season when they beat Kentucky, after ranking tied for 8th in FBS and 2nd in the SEC with 34 sacks last year. The Gators start the season with 6. So, like I said, we can say a whole lot of things about this defense. Sacks is not probably going to be an issue whatsoever. They tied a team high from last year with 6 sacks. It's just can you get more turnovers off the sacks? And on the big third downs in games, can you get the sack? That's my question now. The pressure itself overall throughout a season will never be a problem under Todd Grantham, but can it be there in the magical moments of a game? That's what we're going to have to start looking out for these big sacks in this Gator defense. Let's see. Florida's 126 sacks since Dan Mullen's debut in 2018. So since Dan Mullen was hired, ranks first in the SEC and third nationally, trailing only Clemson with 148 and Pittsburgh with 134. So 2 ACC teams there with a lot of sacks there since 2018. But the Gators are third in that department since Mullen was hired. Todd Grantham comes in and pressures the quarterback. So no surprise there. But as I said, let's go see it in bigger moments of the season. So man, a lot to get into there with that game. There's like I said, a lot of fun being there. Good seeing football in that atmosphere. Good seeing football in general. It was another game didn't go the way we wanted it to, and hopefully versus USF is much better. I know it probably won't put a whole lot of confidence in people's minds as far as Bama coming up the next week, but next week when we have a show on next Sunday, it's going to be a whole lot better if we're talking about a lot of good things heading into that week instead of another struggle. So hopefully the team comes together, rallies together, get some of these issues fixed. It wasn't an overall bad game. Maybe focused on too much of the bad here in this episode, just because I think the expectations come into play too of what we expected to see from Florida and FAU. Like we said some good things, the 400 rushing yards and the explosive runs there. Some of the receivers who haven't been involved in games getting involved in this game. A good point there. And the defense, we just went through everything for those guys and some of the good that they did. So just now, the old cliche. You get better from game 1 to game 2, and hopefully that spreads across the whole program going against USF this coming up week. A USF team that, 45-0 when they got beat by NC State. So, this team doesn't look like they're going to be should be much of an issue for the Gators. So Gators hopefully rally together, come back up, get a better week of practice, and go to Tampa and put it on USF. And next Sunday, we're talking about a whole lot of points scored, talking about 2 quarterbacks looking good, and talking about a more consistent defense when Florida and USF, we'll call it final hopefully next week. And we'll have it right here on Gators Breakdown. So, all right, let's take before we get off here, we'll just look back at this week 1 for the Gators. Let's take a look at week 1 for all the SEC teams. And go back to Thursday night. It was Tennessee Bowling Green, 38-6. Tennessee win. They jumped off to a big lead, a whole lot of tempo, and then couldn't do much after that. And Milton at quarterback, another storyline to look out for, similar to how many people are going to be looking at Emory Jones. Joe Milton, a good start, and then settled down just a little bit. Kentucky, in their new look offense, scores 45 points in beating Louisiana Monroe 45-10. Arkansas win 38-17 over Rice. One of the bigger games for this Saturday was Alabama and Miami. Alabama puts it on Miami. Was never even a question for me for that. Alabama 44, Miami 13. Alabama loses a lot. They just reload. They still humming along. Ton of new players, ton of new coaching staff. Doesn't matter. They roll 5-star after 5-star out there and keep that ball rolling. Mississippi State with a crazy comeback, if you missed that. 35-34 over Louisiana Tech. I think they were down 20 in the fourth quarter and come storming back to take a victory over Louisiana Tech. 35-34 for Mississippi State. Missouri, Central Michigan, 34-24 Missouri over Central Michigan. Old Jim McElwain's team. Jim McElwain was not coaching in that game. I believe he had a surgery, they said, so he was not at the game when Missouri beat Central Michigan 34-24. Auburn, Brian Harsin comes in from Boise State, puts up 60 in his debut over Akron, 60-10. The Tigers beat Akron. South Carolina, 46-0 over Eastern Illinois. And the game of the week was on the same time as the Florida game. No offensive touchdowns scored as Georgia defeats Clemson 10-3. Georgia, the only touchdown of the game was a pick 6 for Georgia as they beat Clemson. Probably look for them to be the number 2 team in the country next week. So to be Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2. Florida has to play both of those teams this year. So there you go. That probably would be what the poll looks like when it comes out this week. But 10-3 in the big game of the week, Georgia over Clemson. JT Daniels, so bad decision, interception there that put Clemson, closer into the game. Georgia's defensive front, guys, they are good. They are good. They harassed Clemson's front all night, harassed DJ all night. That defensive front's a force there for the Bulldogs. So look for that as the season progresses. Kent State 41-0, or Kent State loses to Texas A&M 41-10. It's a close game at halftime, and then Texas A&M storms in the second half to put that game away. 41-10 for the Aggies over Kent State. Vanderbilt not off to a good start in the Clark Lee era. 23-3 lost at ETSU. I believe that's Eastern Tennessee State there. 23-3. You get beat by 20 points right there. Not a good look there for Clark Lee in his start. A lot of change going on there at Vanderbilt, but ooh, man, that's a tough one. And then SEC goes down to a Pac-12 team. UCLA defeats LSU 38-27. Didn't get to see much of that game. Honestly, I know it was UCLA jumped off to a lead. LSU climbed back, and then UCLA put that game away in the fourth quarter. But, man, after 2020, bouncing back from that 2019 national championship season, I'm sure Tiger fans are pretty restless after what they had to see from their team last year. It did, of course, end the season well by beating Florida and Ole Miss the last 2 weeks of the season, but then open up the very next season, 2021, with a loss to UCLA. The team dealt with a lot, of course. LSU had to go to Houston in practice after the hurricane ravaged Louisiana. So the team was dealing with a lot, probably mentally as well, but not a good look there for the Tigers as they lose to UCLA 38-27. And then Monday night, Ole Miss in Louisville. Lane Kiffin will not be coaching Ole Miss in person. He has COVID and not making the trip to Atlanta as the Rebels take on the Cardinals. So, all right, that would do it. As we'll take a look back to the FAU game for the Gators, the win for the Gators there, and a look back at the SEC and what happened around the SEC. FSU, if you guys are watching on this Sunday live or, catching this Sunday live, don't forget FSU Notre Dame play Sunday night. So another game to, as we can watch our rivals and Notre Dame playoff team last year. So interested to see where both those programs are heading into this game. So, all right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Everybody, thanks for joining us on this first review of the season. I'm your host of the podcast, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.